device that moves is going to result to violence.
Yeah, you want him to say what you want him to say.
When Rizzo said he was going to use force, did you make him go down in detail to say, well, yeah, if they resist, I'm going to kill them? Did you make him put out his intentions? No. You don't never question Rizzo. And Rizzo is questionable. That man ain't told the truth since he got in office. That man ain't been agreeable since he got the name of mayor. We're saying it's about time that y'all start putting the truth. Don't question the person that's telling the truth. Question the person that's telling the lie.
We were in jail for 41 years. We went in them prisons healthy. And they systematically killed my sister Merle in 1995, my husband Phil in 2005, and my brother Delbert. He came home, but they had already did so much damage to him in prison through medical neglect, just like they do on Mumia, that he was only out here a few months where the doctor said his condition was such that had he got proper treatment, he could have had years to live. Years. They were appalled at the condition that Delbert was in, appalled at the mistreatment that he suffered in them prisons. And we're telling you this because we want y'all to know that we're not exaggerating about Mumia. We're not making this up because, you know, I was trained just like everybody else to believe that doctors are good, they're your friends, officials are honest, they will do what's right. But I've been in MOVE and I'm John Africa taught, and I've seen that that's all a lie. They systematically killed my family, not just with guns and bombs, but through medical neglect. And we're telling you that they do kill people in prison. Don't think they don't. And they get away with it because, like Janet said, when a doctor says something, you're taught to believe it. And they even said in prison when my sister Merle and my husband died, that they died under suspicious circumstances. They couldn't kill us with guns on August 8th. They couldn't kill us with that 100-year sentence. So they systematically poisoned our family in those prisons. And they used the medical department to finish it off. And nothing was said about it because you feel like, well, they got sick and they died. And to them, this was the perfect opportunity to kill Mumia. And you can't let them kill Mumia. And see, this is close to our heart, not only because Mumia stood up for MOVE when nobody else would. He was the only journalist in the 70s that would print the truth, no matter what they said. He was the president of the Black Journalists Association. He had his own show on WNPR. He had his own column in the Tribune. He would not stop. He would not lie. His bosses told him to lie, to stop writing about the MOVE situation. And he said, that's my job. They slowly took everything from him. They took his show on NPR. They took his position at the Tribune. They dropped him from the Black Journalists Association. Mumia was relegated to driving a taxi. This man that had a prestigious position in the journalistic world, you know, and they did it because he wouldn't stop. And then they came right out and they shot him in the streets. And you know when they shot him, it was 2 days after Mumia called into a radio program where the judge that sentenced us to 100 years was on the radio, Judge Malman. Mumia called in and asked the judge who killed James Ramp that they had us in jail for. And he pushed and pushed. The judge tried to evade the question, and Mumia wouldn't stop. Finally, the judge just said, I don't know who killed the cop, but they said they're a family, and I sentenced them as a family. 3 days later, our family we called home, and our family said Mumia has been shot in the street, in the hospital, close to death, and they charging him with murder. And we want y'all to know that they are using Mumia as an example. They are using him as an intimidation tactic to show people this is what you get if you dare to stand up against us. You can't let them do that. People were silent about the August 8th attack on MOVE. People were silent about the May 13th bombing of our innocent babies. My son was in that house. All my kids, all my sisters and brothers, our animals was in that house. And people did not fight like they should have. And look at the conditions around you. After that happened, because this system told them, if you let us do this to move, we know we can do anything we want to y'all. They started shooting people down in the streets. I looked up, I'm in prison, I look up, I turn on my TV and I see a cop shoot this man in the car right next to his wife and this little girl in the back seat and killed him. Killed him when the man said, I'm reaching for my ID to show you I am allowed to carry a concealed weapon. He told the cop this before he put his hand in his pocket, and that cop shot him dead in front of his family. So we're telling y'all, silence is not safety.
We have an ancestral obligation to do what's right. We have an ancestral obligation to do what's right. We are all ancestors in progress. One day, they're going to be pouring water 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now and saying some of our names in this room right here. What does that mean, family? We're going to be able to tell our children and children's children that we fought like hell to bring Mumia Abu-Jamal home. That's the message. Because we put a line in the sand. You're either with the people or you're not. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're either with the people or you're not. We don't care what you call yourself. Do what's right for the people or we on your behind.
Rizzo is saying the MOVE organization has the right to die. We don't have the right to live. What we telling Rizzo is any time that you got a system that has theft under its feet, that has rape under its feet, that's turned in a whole fucking globe up and down, then you got a problem. And what the MOVE organization is saying is we talking about eliminating that problem.
Everybody needs to be outraged. I mean, outraged about this situation. Look at Mumia when he first went to jail. He was innocent. He's still innocent. But because this government was so desperate in trying to stop Mumia, trying to kill Mumia, look at him then and look at him now. People, wake up. They are trying to kill Mumia because for years he has been the voice of the people. He has been speaking out against injustice, speaking out against brutality, speaking out against racism, sexism, and everything. They know the support he has, so they want to stop him because they feel like if they can stop him, they can stop this fight. But we can't allow them to do that, y'all, because if they stop Mumia, then they're stopping you. See, when they were shooting and still shooting our brothers down in the street, in earlier days, they got away with it a little bit because they could lie and nobody had any proof of it. But now you got cameras and you're seeing proof of it and they still getting away with it. But in them hospitals, when the doctor is there and doing things, you can't see what's going on. So it's nothing but a repeat of them shooting them down in the back, in the street, as if they're shooting them down in the medical department and the prison. But people have got to realize you've got to do something because it don't stop with Mumia. It don't stop with MOVE. It's all of us.
Peace, family. Can you hear me? Peace, everybody. Free the land. My name is Mark Lamont Hill, and I am a professor at Temple University, an activist, and a friend and comrade of my dear brother, Mumia Abu-Jamal. The reason why we are here today for this press conference, without exaggeration, is to save a life. We are here to save a life, and we are here to fight for justice. Many of you may know that Mumia Abu-Jamal, the world-renowned veteran Black Panther, political prisoner, radio journalist, activist, scholar, had heart pain over the weekend. He was rushed to the hospital, and we were told as of yesterday was expected to undergo heart surgery today. This is an urgent circumstance for anybody, but for someone living in the dungeons of Pennsylvania prisons or any American prison, it is of especially urgent nature. We are here today to call for justice for Mumia Abu-Jamal, to ensure that Mumia survives and continues to fight. Our specific demands, which our speakers today will talk about, are very simple, but very important. The first one is we demanded that before surgery, Mumia be allowed to call his wife, Wadia Jamal, his longtime supporter, Pam Africa, his chosen doctor, Dr. Ricardo Alvarez, and his spiritual advisor, Mark Taylor. We also demand that Mumia Abu-Jamal not be shackled to his hospital bed, as is the rule in Pennsylvania and around the United States. Again, this is a non-negotiable demand. And we also demand that Mumia, an innocent man, be immediately released from prison. Some of you will say this is too extreme a set of demands. Some will say that this is an unreasonable set of demands. But we say, no, this is absolutely necessary. The first demand is a basic human right to be able to contact one's loved ones. The second is a basic act of medical ethics. Shackling someone to the bed greatly increases their chances of not surviving, greatly increases their chances of having harm done to them medically, greatly increases their chances of happening to him what we saw with our dear departed ancestor and political prisoner Romaine Chip Fitzgerald, who was chained and shackled to his hospital bed in his last days while he was hardly conscious just over 2 weeks ago on March 28th, after spending 52 years incarcerated, caged. And the third one is the call that we've always made to free Mumia. We say free Mumia because Mumia is both factually innocent and legally not guilty of the crimes for which he was convicted. And the only thing we can do right now at this stage in Mumia's life, after spending decades in the dungeons of SCI Green, SCI Mahanoy, SCI Greaterford, the only thing we can do is to let him go. The only treatment for Mumia Abu-Jamal is freedom. And so today we're going to make that call. We're going to consistently echo that call, and we are going to fight to ensure that Mumia is exactly where he belongs, and that is home with those who love him, to continue to fight. And so the first thing I want to do is bring up a longtime freedom fighter, the minister of confrontation from MOVE, a sister who everybody in Philadelphia knows and activists around the country and indeed around the world know. Mumia's longtime supporter, comrade, and friend and sister, Pam Africa. Sister Pam, Mama Pam.
All right, move. On the move. Can you hear me? Hello?
On the move, yes we can.
On the move.
Oh, all right. First thing I want to do is thank everyone for being on here. I have Mumia's wife, Wadia Jamal, on. And
move,
Wadia?
yes, on move, everybody.
Okay. We got
move,
two
Wadia.
phone calls from Mumia.
On the move,
We
why?
got two phone.
Huh?
You said on the move, why?
I gave it. I said on move too. I got that you sent me. You know.
Mark, did you hear Wadia?
Yep.
Oh, okay then. So, thanks to the power of this movement, we want to point out that, Mumia did call Wadia. She did talk with the doctors, and she's very nervous. And she want to tell people, what happened, and I will be helping her out in case she, you need me to help her out. So, introducing Wadia Jamal, who put the call out yesterday morning to say, where is Mumia after 5 days? Wadia, you got it.
Where is my husband? That's what because Mumia calls me on a daily basis, no matter what. If he can't reach me, I'll have somebody else reach me. But that didn't happen for days. And I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm scared. I knew something was wrong with him because he doesn't do that. So finally, I just put it on Facebook. Where is my husband, Mumia Abu-Jamal? And then people started realizing that I don't know where he is, who's going to know where he is, right? But Marcus said, he said that they're having an emergency surgery on his heart as soon as possible. I talked to him today. He sounded so weak. He said that he was walking the walk in the yard. And
Last Friday, he was taking a walk.
Right. And his chest hurt. So he said, So they came and got him and took him to the infirmary. And they said he needed to go to the hospital. And they took him to the hospital, shackled and stuff again. And see, I'm hearing this. He has surgery on his heart.
Yeah.
See, Mumia been through so much. The diabetes, the hepatitis, and now they're talking about his heart. This is their way of trying to out yet again Mumia. They're trying to out him again. Mumia is the teller of truth. And the reason he's the teller of truth is because Mumia is an investigative report. He didn't get his room from so-and-so for the news or so-and-so for the news. He would go to the source of that person or people, That's how he met Move. That's how I was introduced to Move. He took me around them because I believed what they were saying on the news about how they was eating dogs and crazy nonsense, until I met Move. I mean, not until I met Move. Until he took me around them. And I seen how loving and warm, oh my God, warm and consistent they are with their well, you have to excuse me, Mark. I'm nervous.
No, you with family, Wadia. So you no need to be nervous. You're surrounded with love, and we know how hard a time this is. I'm gonna ask Pam to just jump in for a second because your audio was going out a little bit for us. But everybody, what Wadia was saying was, she was talking first of all about how, this is yet another thing that has happened to Mumia while being in the prison, whether you're talking about hepatitis, whether you're talking about diabetes, whether you're talking about COVID, and now congestive heart failure. These are all things that didn't just happen while he was in prison. These are things that have happened directly because of the treatment he has received while in the prison. It's not incidental or coincidental. She was saying that over the last few weeks, she heard him talk about as he's going for a walk. He began to feel some discomfort, began to feel pain. She was nervous, didn't know what to do. And of course, the prison officials aren't responsive to the needs of anybody who's incarcerated with any kind of urgency. And then the other piece of this, she said, is that it's no coincidence that Mumia is being treated this way, and he's an investigative reporter. She said he doesn't just tell the truth, he goes and finds the truth and then tells it, and that makes him a threat to society, makes him a threat to the state, makes him a threat to the powers that be. And that is why we have to continue to fight to protect Mumia's life as if it were our own, as Baldwin said, which it is. How do we, Pam, what should we do?
Right. Let me tell you what. When they took Mumia last Friday as he was walking, and right into the story, it was an elder he was walking with, and Mumia was like huffing and puffing. The guy walks with a cane; he walks very slow. So what Mumia told me, he said, "Yo, man," he said, "slow down." And the elder turned around and looked at him. He said, "I've had 15, bouts with my heart." And he says, "What I'm telling you to do is when we go around, you immediately tell them to take you to the infirmary." Mumia said, arrogant, okay, he went to try to make another run around, walk around, and that's when it hit him real hard. He did go to the infirmary. At the infirmary, they did an EKG on him. They told him everything was fine. And he left there and things got worse. Then they rushed him to the hospital. When they rushed him to the hospital, he was there. He didn't have a big surgery today. What they did, they examined him and found out that he had 3 arteries and closing. He said 1 out of the 3 was 89 to 99% closed. So what they're going to do is have, in the next few days, he's going to have the surgery done. And Dr. Ricardo Alvarez can explain to people, exactly what that is. But, Mumia, Wadia and all the people that, participated in bringing this. I can't thank Boyle, Johanna, Noel, Betsy. I can't, think of all the names and all, but who jumped right in there and this hit the world in a matter of minutes. It wasn't until late last night that this flyer went out, because at first they was trying not to give us any information. And but behind the fact that, of the consistency and they know that we can do, there was last night this information went out. First thing this morning, due to Brother Bob Boyle, who had talked to the doctors, they called Wadia, told her what was happening. And, then they told her that they was going to call her back, with Mumia. I happened to be on the phone with her when Mumia called. The first time he called, we didn't know that he didn't have the surgery that, we were thinking he was going to have. But his voice sounds strong, but, weak because of the sickness. And, he expressed his love for Wadia and his gratitude, because he knew it wasn't but one way that this could have happened. That was the power of the movement. And what he wanted the people to know, that he filled that love. That's his strength.
Yes.
And, yeah, so, that's my report. And, everybody else can, fill in. What people can do, stay consistent, because Mumia is not out of the woods. Mumia is 100%, innocent. And our
yes.
must be. Not no new trial. And we must demand the release of Mumia based on all the evidence that's there. Bypass all that crooked stuff that they're doing. We can, just like we got that phone call, if we all stay together and fight together, and Mumia can come from our way. With that, I say, on the move, long live revolution, long live John Africa. Wadia, you had something to say on the end?
I just want everybody to know to please come out and help him. Nothing is too small.
That's right.
Nothing is too small.
That's right. And the people...
And Mumia needs us. We needed him. Now it's our turn to help him. We needed us. We needed him. Now it's our turn to help him.
That's it. That's right. Wadia, we love you. Pam, we love you. On the move.
Love you too, Mark. Thank you, Mark.
Of course.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, on the move.
Yeah. On the move.
On the move, everybody.
We're gonna keep rolling. Up next, of course, is a stranger to no one. It is our dear sister Angela Davis, a longtime friend and comrade of Mumia's, a freedom fighter, and someone who for decades has told the truth about the prison industrial complex. Angela, you're up.
Thank you, Mark. And solidarity, love and solidarity to everyone on the call. As we know, people all over the world have been developing solidarity actions for Mumia over the last several decades. And they remain incredulous that he has had to spend the last 40 years of his life under conditions that no human being should have to live. And we see in the chat that there are people from Europe, from Africa, from South America, from the Caribbean, and from other parts of the world. We knew at the beginning of this pandemic that prisons were going to be responsible for the rapid spread of COVID-19. And we called for the release of prisoners, especially aging prisoners. And we know that imprisonment speeds up the aging process. This is one of so many reasons why we need to abolish prisons. I am one of the many around the world who have deep revolutionary love for Mumia. And we know that he needs us now. He needs us to stand with him as he confronts the brutal power of the state, and as he tries to grapple with his medical condition, which has been produced and we know exacerbated by prison authorities. As has been the case many times before during the course of Mumia's incarceration, his predicament mirrors that of so many other people behind bars. And we know that whenever we win a victory in the course of our struggle for Mumia's freedom, it is a victory for the larger community of women and men, cis and trans, who are in prisons all over the US. For too many years, as a direct consequence of the power and influence of police unions and associations, it has been really hard to build movements for Mumia's freedoms in the US that match the support developed in Europe, for example. Because these police organizations have misrepresented him. They have demonized him. They have turned him into a figure deserving scorn and vilification. We all know that Mumia deserves love and support and solidarity. This is a moment when we are witnessing exactly how racism is produced and reproduced within the ranks of police forces across the country. And even though they know they're being closely watched, they simply cannot help engaging in activity that leads to more racism, more repression, more death. Because they are not as all-powerful as they used to be, this is precisely the moment to militantly intervene on Mumia's behalf. Racist violence has to stop. We can call too many names: Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and now Dante Wright. And we know that our collective sensibility to the way police forces and prison systems have devoured the lives of our communities, including leaders such as Leonard Peltier, and of course, our beloved brother, Mumia Abu-Jamal. This collective sensitivity has been produced in part by Mumia's always extremely insightful contributions. And as we heard from Pam and his wife, Wadia, Mumia is now in the hospital awaiting heart surgery and will possibly be chained and shackled during the surgery. This is absolutely humane. And now is the time to express our collective rage about his treatment and about the treatment of other aging prisoners. Mumia is about to undergo heart surgery. He should not be handcuffed and shackled to his bed. He should be allowed to freely communicate with his wife, Wadia, and with his longtime comrade and representative, Pam Africa. And so I join those who say, freedom now. We demand the immediate release of Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Thank you, Angela. Up next is another incredible freedom fighter, powerful voice, and a brilliant scholar who has helped push the conversation on liberating not just Mumia Abu-Jamal, but all political prisoners in this country. Up next is Dr. Johanna Fernandez.
Thank you so very much, Mark, for your own longstanding commitment to freedom. And it's an honor to be here alongside of Pam Africa and Wadia, and of course, Angela Davis and Gabe and so many others from whom you'll hear. Where does one start? First of all, it goes without saying that Mumia Abu-Jamal is part of a generation of Black radicals who were imprisoned and given draconian sentences for standing up against empire in the 1960s. And their imprisonment is about punishing resistance. And as was said previously, making an example for others to see of what might happen to you if you dare to fight. But what we've learned in the movement to free Mumia, but also in the movement for abolition, is that support work for prisoners is incredibly important. The prison system is about control and the severing of prisoners from community and family and loved ones. And all kinds of terror is daily deployed in American prisons. But as soon as you shine light on that, as soon as people start making calls, ringing the alarm, and exposing the barbarism, the bully backs down. And that is what we must continue to do with Mumia, with other political prisoners, Russell Maroon Shoatz, Sundiata Acoli. And we need to do it now because our political prisoners are aging. I just wanted to give a sense of what has happened because we've had a victory. We've had a victory because they are overloaded with phone calls and they want the phone calls to stop. But now is in fact the moment when the phone calls must begin because we're not done with freedom yet. The last time we think Mumia called any one of us was Saturday. And yesterday, a number of us who speak to him daily, like 3 of us, got together and said, have you heard from Mumia? No, have you? No, nobody's heard from Mumia. Something is wrong. So what happened? We don't know. Mumia was sequestered, disappeared. Contact with his wife, family, and friends severed. Does that sound familiar to you? The echoes of slavery are in this disaster that we've been through, that Mumia has been through, but also the community that is connected to him. So we didn't know what had happened to him, and the prison authorities wouldn't even give a straight answer to Mumia's attorneys, who are in court with the Department of Corrections for medical neglect in the past. And I want you to consider that at a moment when one is ill and pondering questions of mortality, questions of the heart, we want to be with our families, with our friends. You want to call your loved one, your wife. And Mumia was barred from actually reaching out to and calling his loved ones in the run-up to surgery. Think about the barbarism of a system that feels that there is no right of a prisoner that the state must respect. In the 1960s, radicals like the Young Lords, the Puerto Rican counterpart of the Black Panther Party, in the Bronx, occupied a hospital, and they drafted the first known patient Bill of Rights. And that patient Bill of Rights established that the patient is a human being, that there is such a thing as medical racism and discrimination, and that a patient has the right to speak to his advocates, to have his advocates present or her advocates present during a medical transaction. And that is precisely what Mumia and his family and friends were not allowed to partake in, and are not entirely allowed to partake in now because Mumia's chosen medical doctor, Dr. Alvarez, has not had access to his current doctors and has not been told exactly what is wrong with Mumia and what are the steps to be taken. A question we have is, wasn't Mumia hospitalized just 2 minutes ago, March 28th? 2 minutes ago, Mumia was hospitalized. And if he had blocked arteries and they had they conducted a battery of tests, shouldn't some of that have been identified? So if the prison system can't meet its charge to address the health needs of the prisoner, then you got to release the prisoner immediately, because you clearly are not doing what needs to be done to save the life of another human being. I'm going to end quickly. I just wanted to emphasize that that this is barbaric and inhumane. If any of us is in the hospital, we take for granted the fact that we are going to be able to call our mother, our father, our sister, our brother, our relative, our friend, our wife, especially before heart surgery, when your heart is actually vulnerable and when you are experiencing trauma. The hospital and the prison system and the state is essentially establishing the conditions for failure in surgery. And at some point, we have to charge the system with genocide, not only in the case of Chip Fitzgerald, the political prisoner, but in the countless other prisoners who've been killed by the state through medical neglect. I want to get to the issue of shackling prisoners. So Mumia is shackled right now to a bed. And I just want to say something that I've said before and written, which is that loud and clear are the echoes of chattel slavery in the Americas, in the shackling of prisoners today, which is a practice in Pennsylvania and throughout the country. And as we know, the institution of slavery, for the first time in human history, produced the global distribution and mass use of handcuffs, shackles, and fetters to bring enslaved Africans to heel. So all those folks who were talking about Black Lives Matter, who are part of the problem in prison, right, in the prison system, because the PA head of the DOC, John Wetzel, has been talking a lot about white supremacy and Black Lives Matter, but privately, he's at the helm of a system that is perpetuating slavery by another name. That is where shackling comes from. And at some point, we have to say that we will not live in a society that continues to perpetuate this racialized barbarity. I want to just encourage all of us to continue in this work, to free Mumia and all political prisoners, and to end the system of control of the people at the bottom of society, and colonized and racialized people in particular. But ultimately, as Angela Davis has said over and over again, is that all of these questions of depravity, of barbarism, of control on the part of the state raise questions about the kind of society in which we want to live. And the alternative is, in fact, building a community of people who are each other's keepers. Because it was ultimately an old Black prisoner walking around with a cane with Mumia, who told Mumia, brother, you need to get your ass to the infirmary because I've had 15 heart attacks and you got a problem. So we are our keepers, our own keepers. And that is the kind of vision for a new world that the movement to free Mumia, that the abolitionist movement stands for, a world in which we see that which binds us as human beings. We see the common humanity among all of us, and we fight for a world in which the shackling of a patient is unfathomable and unthinkable. Our next demand must be that Mumia's doctor be immediately allowed to understand what it is that Mumia is in the hospital for. Thank you so very much, everyone. We have 466 people present. And it's free Mumia now, end mass incarceration later, and transform the world in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you. That's exactly the charge that we needed. Mumia means so much to so many people. And while we fight for Mumia's life, it's always within a broader context of fighting to liberate all political prisoners and to dismantle the prison industrial complex, to abolish prisons and policing. This is part of the bigger movement that we're fighting for. And the fact that Mumia continues to resonate is not a surprise. Mumia's case, but also the broader movement, is one that youth activists have engaged and embraced. One of those people was Erica Kane. She's a member of the Black Alliance for Peace. She's a youth organizer, and in her 5 minutes, she's going to talk about the importance of Mumia in the movement today for this generation of activists, which is so important. Erica.
Hi, so can everyone hear me? All right, so my name is Erica Keynes, and as noted, I am a member of the Black Alliance for Peace, and I'm also co-editor of the African revolutionary blog, Hood Communists. And I'm very honored to speak a bit about Mumia Abu-Jamal and his present influence on this movement era. Mumia once said that prison is a second-by-second assault on the soul, a day-to-day degradation of the self, an oppressive steel and brick umbrella that transforms seconds into hours and hours into days. In Mumia's case, the state of Pennsylvania is deeply invested in ensuring that there will be no more days for him. Instead of adhering to the long-time demands of the people to free Mumia, the state, including Philadelphia's popular progressive prosecutor, has refused to do so. Learning about Mumia's case, as I've gotten more opportunities to publicly advocate on behalf of his freedom, has especially opened my eyes to the delusions of any justice being found within the US injustice system. What has been made clear since the 3 decades fight to remove Mumia from death row was, one, is that he is being punished for not dying, both then and now. However, despite these realities of the prison system and his unjust trial and sentencing, Mumia's invaluable voice and clear analysis of our material circumstances as Black people within the US could be heard on prison radio or read in one of his many books, like Have Black Lives Ever Mattered or Murder Incorporated, all produced from behind the prison walls, encouraging, informing, and inspiring countless youth marching and organizing in collective demand that our Black lives do in fact matter. Mumia does not simply serve as a point of inspiration. Mumia and all political prisoners who are aging away and dying, rest in peace to Chip Fitzgerald, behind prison walls serve as warnings to any of us who refuse to normalize this settler colonial state that depicts Blackness as innately criminal and Black people as deserving of injustice. So, brick by brick and wall by wall, we're going to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. May we all catch one another in the whirlwind. Thank you. Forward ever.
That was powerful. That was powerful. And again, a testament to just how important Mumia's struggle to liberate Mumia is, not just in the 1980s or 1990s, but in this very moment. I want to keep this thing moving, and I want to bring up Bob Boyle, who is Mumia's medical attorney and a longtime movement attorney for political prisoners. Bob.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be one of the attorneys for Mumia Abu-Jamal. And it's also an honor to be on the panel with all of these distinguished people and all the people who are looking on, because you're the movement. And it's the movement that has saved Mumia in the past, and which we need to make sure that the state is not successful in killing him. And I use that term deliberately because that's the seriousness that this presents. The people who have spoken already have eloquently described, what we have here is a racist and barbaric prison system. That shackling of someone to a bed is part of Bureau of the prison system's official policy, is as Johanna pointed out, just epitomizes the racist and barbaric system that we have. Over the last day, I've done some legal research on that issue to see if we could present some claim. I was horrified to see that courts have sanctioned leaving women in the early stage of labor, women prisoners, shackled to their beds. And they said that's fine under the 8th Amendment. It's not cruel and inhuman treatment. It's horrifying. Now, just because the courts sanction that doesn't mean that it can't change. The Department of Corrections is a public agency. There are legislators who control the Department of Correction. We need a movement to stop this barbaric policy, not only in Mumia's case, because in Mumia, if we're successful in Mumia's case, it's going to help everyone else too, and everyone else around the country. And we need that grassroots movement to do that. And some people scoff at that it's going to take too long, but here in New York, we recently passed a new law that outlawed solitary confinement. And when that law was being, when that campaign started, everyone said, you're never going to be able to do it. But it was the grassroots work by people in the community that got the legislature to pass that law, and even as someone as horrible as Andrew Cuomo to actually sign it into law. And so we need to take stock of that and know that we can do it. We need a lot of changes in policy, but people have talked about the situation with Mumia in the past few days. Would it be so hard for if a prisoner has to be taken to an outside hospital that someone at the prison notifies their family that they're being taken to prison? I mean, how much work is it to pick up the phone and call someone's next of kin? So they're not living with the stress and anxiety of not knowing where their loved one is. And as Johanna mentioned, the effect on someone like Mumia, who is in the hospital and does not know whether his family and loved ones know that he's in the hospital. And we all know, if you're going into surgery, you're supposed to have a positive frame of mind, right? But what's the frame of mind that the Department of Corrections puts prisoners under who need this treatment? So there's a lot of work for us to do. And I want to close with this. I've been communicating, with the Department of Corrections, directly. And I found in the last day or so, they've been somewhat responsive. And I know that's not my doing. Maybe a little of it is my doing. It's the doing of you people in the movement, because they know that people are calling up, people are on the street, and so they're returning my emails. Amazing, because usually they ignore them. The fight is just beginning. Mumia is going to be having this surgery, and then we're going to need to keep the pressure on so he's treated humanely and given the care he deserves. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bob, not just for your words today, but for your tireless work as a supporter and advocate for so many people in the movement and so many people who were attempting to liberate. Up next is my dear friend and brother, Mumia's grandson, who's going to offer comments on behalf of the family, Jamal Hart Jr. Go ahead, my brother.
Hey, what's going on, people? We just can't let Larry Krasner stand in the way of justice. We talked about being fair when I ran into him. Like, he talked about, like, hey, I want to be fair, and I can't free Mumia, but Mia he was never allotted fairness in 40 years, right? Pennsylvania politicians springboarded their entire careers trying to kill my people. They like to appease, they like to empower the racists in the state, right? But not with the blood of my people, not my pop, right? Personally, I'm like very worried. I've been like a little anxious. We know what they'll do to continue to silence people who inspire people. We need to stay on them. We need to stay ringing those phones. We need to let them know that we watching. Right? We need to hold him accountable because he's behind enemy lines right now, right? This was right before his birthday. He talked to my pop on Friday, a couple of days after, he was laughing and counseling my dad on a life milestone, poking fun at him, the things that like a father does with a son. Like my grandpa is like a man full of love, right? And wit and humor, and he's amazing, right? I couldn't even schedule a video chat with my grandpa, a video call, right? And I called my pop and he was as confused as I was because he had just talked to him, right? A couple of days before, right? But little did I know that he was being smuggled secretly. We didn't even know where he was. My grandfather, Mumia Abu Jamal, is in the hospital, right? And he's been fighting, right? Mumia is an innocent man, factually and legally, right? They know it, we know it, the world knows it. We must not let up. We have to keep going. They'll keep trying to divide us, and weaken our resolve, but they can't, right? The truth shines through all darkness. We're witnessing the continuation of a Black resistance movement that came before us. We got to keep on our A game. Keep our voices high, make sure that they're uncomfortable. They've been making us uncomfortable forever. So we got to make sure that they're uncomfortable when they walk through these streets talking about, Black Lives Matter, right? Well, while they, continuously, and deliberately shun Mumia from freedom, right? To hear my grandpa, is undergoing surgery, I'm just like really, anxious, right? Mumia Abu Jamal is an educator, a journalist, a scholar. He's not a criminal. He's a man. We need to keep going hard. Make sure my grandfather is treated like a human being. No shackles when he's undergoing surgery. The ability to contact his counsel, spiritual and personal. The ability to contact his loved ones, right? Even though his blood runs through my veins, I know his words, his voice runs through y'all. We all family. This is my pop's pop, my folks. He's the voice of all of us, right? All of the people. He doesn't compromise. He speaks the truth. And that's why we have to do everything. We have to do everything we have to do to get him out. We're shoulder to shoulder fighting for his life of a Black revolutionary who still smiles, who still laughs, who still loves, who's still empowered and inspires us all. Freedom is the only treatment at this point, especially after 40 years. He's getting aged, he's getting old. Freedom is the only treatment. Freedom is the only justice that the people will accept. That's all I got to say.
Brother, you said a whole lot. Thank you. For so many people, Mumia is a cause. For some of us, he's a comrade and a friend. But for you, that's family. And that's a whole other level. And we understand that. And we will continue to fight for his freedom. so you can see your grandfather in person, so he can tease your father about his age on a couch, not through a cage. That's what this liberation movement is about. Up next is my dear brother, Mike Africa Jr., someone who we know as an activist, as a powerful voice, not just in the city of Philadelphia, but around the world. And so we're going to bring him up so that he can talk about what's going on with Mumia as well as the broader movement. What's up, Mike?
Can y'all hear me?
Got you, bro.
Thanks for introducing me, Mark. On the move, y'all. You know, when I was asked to speak today, I was, what I was even, but I with Mumia, this compassionate release thing that they call it compassionate release, but ain't nothing compassionate about the Pennsylvania Compassionate Release Program. I'm saying if Derek Chauvin is on trial right now, when everybody saw what he did to George Floyd, then free Mumia. If Dante Wright, the killer of Dante Wright, can be released after being arrested, and everybody saw what she did, I'm saying free Mumia. And the same go for Walter Wallace Jr., the killer of Walter Wallace Jr., and so many others. One of the things that Mumia says in his commentaries, and it's going back to probably like 95 or something, he would say, my name is Mumia Abu Jamal. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, connecting who he is and letting everybody in the world know that he's a family man. And what the families go through when their loved ones are locked up is something that I've had to experience my whole life. I know what Jamal Jr. is going through. I know what Jamal is going through. When Move Now were in prison,
Yo, Mike, if you Mike, I don't know if you can hear me. You're freezing up a little bit.
there was a situation for issues.
One sec, Mike. If you're freezing up a little bit, we were hearing you good for a minute. So if you get into a good zone, just if you can stay there. It's just, we're losing a bit.
I'm not moving.
Oh,
can you hear me?
Now we can.
All right. So I turned my video off. That might help.
Yeah, I think so, brother.
Okay. So what I was saying is, when the Move Now were in prison, Phil Africa was, he had went into this thing. He had passed out in his cell, and Delbert called home to inform us of what was going on. And it took us a while to find out where he was. The prison didn't want to tell us where he was, what hospital they had taken him to. But with our investigations and supporters calling and to try to find out, we found out where he was. And Carlos Africa and I went to the prison, to the prison hospital. And when we got there, Phil was unconscious. He was sedated. And he was shackled to a bed. Both his legs were shackled and on his wrist. And he only had one hand available to scratch his nose or whatever. And when you see a person in that position and they're defenseless and there's an armed guard outside and there's another guard with a shotgun, this is what shackled to a bed is for a prisoner. And Carlos and I, we fought with the hospital to provide comfort for Phil. And we fought with them to give him a phone call to his wife, who was in another prison at Cambridge Springs, 7 hours away. And eventually the prison gave them, and we got calls from people, just like with Mumia, we got calls from people all over the country and out feeling that situation. And the scary part about this whole situation with, when I reflect on the situation with 2 years later, and we did all that we could do, but it wasn't enough. And when I think about it now, that all the other people are home and Phil didn't get a chance to come home with his wife and his kids and his family. When I look at Jamal Jr., I fear that for him. And I don't want to think about the worst in this situation, but I can't help but think about the worst in this situation. We are on the move, and we do have, in a lot of ways, we got them on the ropes. We must continue to fight. We must continue to support the families. We must continue to keep our foot on the gas, because if we don't, if we let up at any point, we're going to lose our brother. Now, I know that everybody is on this call because they feel there's this deep sense of love. It's interesting that Mumia is in the hospital for his heart, and the hearts of everyone else are here to support him, to give him strength. And his heart, Wadia, is here. Right? We already know the system is wrong. We know that we can't try to make sense out of the senseless nonsense. They don't believe in justice. They don't know what fair. They don't even care about that. So we have to do what we have to do to provide the protection for our brother, so that he can come home to his family and get the hugs and the kisses and whatever other support that he needs, like we got for the Move 9, like we got for so many others in this last couple of years, and like we intend to do for so many others. That's all I really got to say. I appreciate everybody for being here. I'm happy to be here, and on with the fight to free Mumia. On the move.
Move. Thank you, Mike Africa. Up next, as we begin to wind down, we have Dr. Ricardo Alvarez. As y'all know, many of you know, he's been a longtime supporter of Mumia from the West Coast, and he's somebody who's been investigating the medical aspect of what we're talking about, but also thinking more broadly about pregnant women during labor, medical rights, COVID, all the ways that the prison has compromised the health of those caged inside of them. Ricardo, come on up.
Thank you so much. And I want to just really thank and honor our distinguished panelists, but also all the participants. Mumia is alive because of all the work and love of all the participants who've made calls and who've been involved for so many years, particularly the work of Pam and Move in allowing him to stay alive. I also want to acknowledge that our movement is shifting in a way that I am learning from the youth. And I'm seeing that the way that the youth are having connections with each other and finding creative ways of telling a story. As a medical provider, it's an honor for me to be a consultant on Mumia's care. And in some ways, this is very much a story about humanity and recognizing his dignity. When we speak about Mumia's dignity, we link to the suffering of others, other political prisoners and others who are in this situation of mass incarceration. And when we examine just one window of that with shackling, and then look more closely at shackling of pregnant women, we learn that there may be a federal law which prohibits shackling of women, but you find that 85% of pregnant women will be in state and counties. And so effectively, we're still allowing the shackling of women at the time that life is coming into earth. And it's symbolic of the larger issue that shackling has been so regularly accepted as standard practice. And it begins to open up a larger window of how we dehumanize the experience of those who are in prison. One aspect of imprisonment that we have to pay particular attention to is the fact that the sentences are so long now that we're having more and more elders in prison. And it's now in some states up to close to 20%. And what we find is that there's actually data showing a phenomenon called accelerated aging. It makes sense. Under the stress of survival, even the federal government has now accepted the age of 50 as the beginning point of gerontology within the prison system, because it's so clear that the stresses of that system accelerate the aging process. Now, I want to focus a little bit on Mumia. I want to begin by saying that as a consultant to Mumia, we begin by the reality that Mumia has medically documented evidence of harm. There's no question that Mumia suffered from liver cirrhosis as a result of the deliberately holding back of life-saving medications. Now, they did that in violation of what proper societal guidelines are. And as the court case reveals, they actually did that even in their lax guidelines. They didn't even meet that standard. I also want to say there is documented evidence that Mumia has suffered when he was put into a diabetic coma as a result of neglect of monitoring his sugar and then providing medication, steroids orally and injecting in such a way that it is a known side effect to increase sugars. He also suffers from COVID. COVID in prisons is a whole phenomenon. You can watch Wetzel saying to the state legislators, I need to reduce this population by at least another couple of thousand. Prisons create the conditions for COVID to spread rapidly. And it's an opportunity for us to examine the decarceration of our elders. Mumia reminds us, abolition is the mission. I want to say as well that when we look at Mumia's health, one of the great risks to him, aside from his congestive heart failure, which has been clearly documented, is that there's a deep level of harm that comes to him from how he is being treated. Now, let's just examine, you've heard from Johanna and others on how something as basic as the medical right to consult your loved ones and your medical counsel prior to a procedure has been denied to him. I want to make clear that to this date, I have not received any confirmation of what his medical condition is. I have spoken to no medical provider. There has been no access. I've been asked, what surgery is Mumia getting? And I have to tell you, I can't confirm it completely. What I suspect is that he will have a open heart surgery, which will be what's called a bypass graft. He will need multiple vessels to address the clogged arteries. But I'm in a situation now where I have to say that demand has not been met. And thank you for the strenuous efforts of everyone else who's allowed these openings. But what we're observing is really a degradation of what is a basic right of someone to seek counsel regarding his healthcare or her healthcare. But I have to say that one of the greatest harms to Mumia is state violence. Mumia's survival is really a testament to his strength. There is medically documented evidence that Mumia was brutally beaten the night of his arrest. And there's medically documented evidence that there was perjured testimony of his confession, his supposed confession. This is medical documentation. As such, there's a form of violence that occurs when the brutality of that situation is casually referred to in a Krasner brief around, this is just Mumia resisting arrest. That's a form of violence that we're attempting to address. And that's a form of harm that comes to him. And it legitimates what we know in the research literature, which is a legitimate distrust of larger institutions. He has a legitimate distrust of the legal, medical, judicial, and police enforcement. These are professionals who have engaged with him in a way where the proper standards have not been met. And so at this time, I want to say that we support Mumia from the only possible treatment, which is freedom. Free Mumia, free them all, free our elders in prison. Let's end this mass incarceration. Thank you.
Right. Free Mumia, free them all. What's the call? Free them all. Up next, we got Mark Lewis Taylor, who wears so many hats. Obviously, educators from Mumia Abu-Jamal, an advisor, a spiritual advisor to Mumia, a dear comrade and friend, and just one of the most courageous and consistent voices this world has to offer. Brother Taylor. Hit that unmute button there. 1 second, hit the unmute button.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thanks everybody, and respect to all the family, especially Wadia and Jamal Jr., Mike Africa, and those who are working and existing and yet flourishing through this hard time. Like a lot of you, I went to sleep last night and woke up this morning not knowing where Mumia's body was. I knew we were going to be working. I knew there was resistance going on, but where was that body? And I had to get up and take off early and try to find out. My class let me out, and I was able to be at the prison at 8:45. And starting then, I started experiencing reminders of what we're up against, which yet show us just how far we've come, as I've seen it from the 90s on, and I'm seeing it now in the younger generation stepping forward. I got to the prison. I was brusquely turned away by a prison guard who would not allow me in. He just said the prison is closed. I said I needed to speak to the superintendent. No, the prison is closed. Most interestingly, the guard was wearing an almost full face tube cloth mask styled as a Blue Lives Matter flag. Not usual guard insignia, although I've seen more and more like that on the arm patches and insignia of some prison guards. But it reminded me, this is the face of mass incarceration. And it's not just the face of the prisons, it's the face of police power and white supremacy's accommodation of police power, and that general state repression we are seeing across so many of the apparatuses of surveillance and repression. Well, I continued on. I went to 2 hospitals where I thought Mumia might be, first in Pottsville and then Allentown, PA. We still haven't really confirmed where he is. But at the second one, I had 2 database computer workers in the hospital say that he was in Allentown. And one of them even said he was in surgery, meaning not necessarily going through surgery, but I guess being ready for surgery. And it's interesting, we don't really know. I find that, by the way, while I was doing this, got a call back from the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections special counsel, one Seth Holmes, who said that he had had a health official at Mahanoy call Wadia. I don't know if he really did or not, but he said he did. But notice, no information was given to me as spiritual advisor, not enough specificities to Wadia and her family, surely. It's a call without real connection, a call without the cultivation and preservation of life-giving relationships. And this takes me to another point I want to make. A number of people have already said this, and we're seeing it again, right? the state is out to isolate Mumia. And when you isolate someone in prison like he's being isolated from his family, then there comes what another colleague scholar of mine writes about, atomization and then extermination. They want Mumia to slowly decay unto death in an unnatural way by their repressive means. We win and have won when we fight the isolation, because that's the precursor to what the state wants, namely his extermination. I had to represent myself a lot today, and I went with a ministerial collar today as a religious advisor, which I'm designated by the DOC as, but I prefer calling it a spiritual advisor, because what spirit means in most language is something to do with breathing, keeping breath going. To be spiritual, as I see it, is to keep the passageways of life, connectedness to other people, family, friends, even the earth, even to one's own body. And how this state today is at war against connection is what we're up against and what we're seeing. In a way, Mumia is being separated from knowledge of his own body, as he's not being told what he goes through. Although I hear he has a better doctor. We'll have to see, and I'm hoping Dr. Alvarez gets more information. We are separated. His family is separated from knowing where his body is, and as Dr. Alvarez says, what his body is going through. This is a violation of any medical rights that I have ever heard of. And then finally, at the second hospital, I sent up a list of demands and requests upstairs to the security that had come down frantically, which was a pretty good sign. That was the right place, because they were worried and wanted me to move along quickly. But what the first demand was, take the shackles off. No shackling. The movement and the family is clear about this. Let me finish by reading a quote from the AMA Journal of Ethics about shackling, why they are opposed to it. And they style it as a violation of privacy, but really it's such a more basic degradation of justice that's at work here. But listen for the echoes of slavery in this definition that they give. They say that for an anesthetized patient undergoing an operation while shackled and observed by persons in positions of power is a violation of patient privacy that can lead to what? Increased feelings of vulnerability, mistrust of healthcare professions, and reduced therapeutic effectiveness of the procedure. Again, though, in the oversight, as well as the reduction to observation, this is part of the afterlife of slavery, as some writers put it. The reduction of particularly the Black body, and twice as many Black women are shackled when they give birth and are shackled and are seen on the street shackled as well as in the prisons. That is an attempt by the state to reduce the body to a commodified thing. Mumia has always resisted that. We have always resisted that. We're at a crucial juncture where we have to resist it again, and I'm confident that we will. Mumia will never be consigned to that. He'll always be present with us. He is present and fighting still. We'll see him soon, I'm quite sure, and I'm grateful for this press conference. That's one more step towards getting him out, because the only treatment is his freedom for the freedom of all. Thank you.
Mark, and again, powerful words from some long distance runners in their struggle to free Mumia. And again, the only treatment is freedom. Up next is my dear brother, Gabe Bryant, organizer, activist, and powerful comrade in the struggle to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. He's gonna come up and bring us home. Gabe.
Peace, family. Thank you, Mark, as always. And peace to the family for staying strong for the past hour and a half during this press conference. We are on the move. We are fired up. We are encouraged. And we are excited about the possibility of bringing our brother Mumia Abu-Jamal home. You have all heard the reasons why, from medical neglect to the legal. And now it is time to do what's right. All of us can contribute and participate in making sure that our dear brother Mumia Abu-Jamal comes home sooner than ever before. Before we go any further, please stay tuned for www.letmumiaout.com, letmumiaout.com for updates, petitions, flyers, and further upcoming live streams. www.letmumiaout.com. Also, if you'd like to donate to this cause, to this movement, please go to mobilization4mumia.com. Again, mobilization4mumia.com to donate, for updates, for news. Please stay abreast and spread the word. And also go to jamaljournal.blogspot.com. We have re-earthed and unearthed the Jamal Journal to reignite the passion and the spirit of our dear brother, who was a radical journalist, premier radical journalist, Mumia Abu-Jamal, the Jamal Journal for updates and news. As we go forward, we want to give folks the update on where we are right now. We should all be spirited. We should all be confident. We should all have the imagination and the hope that Mumia will come home. Why? Because Albert Woodfox, after several decades incarcerated, is home. Robert King, home. Sekou Odinga, home. Debbie Africa, home. Mike Africa Sr., home. Eddie Africa, home. Chuck Africa, home. Herman Bell, home. The work of the masses of the people brought the people home. Oscar Lopez Rivera, home. These were individuals that the state wanted to extinguish, wanted to be forgotten, but the people said no. People understood what it meant to be convicted and committed to bring them home to their families and to the people and their loved ones. And so with that being said, next weekend, April 23rd to the 25th, we're calling Freedom Weekend. Many of you all know April 24th is Mumia Abu-Jamal's birthday. Our dear beloved brother will be 67 years of age. 67, right? And so we're gonna honor him that weekend, and all political prisoners. Starting on Friday, April 23rd, 6 to 8 p.m., we will have a virtual dialogue, conversation, town hall, and fundraiser, where we're gonna be bringing in mass activist organizers and some old friends of the movement for Mumia Abu-Jamal, including Rage Against the Machine, including author Robin D.G. Kelly, including longtime organizer with Workers' World, Monica Moorhead, including our very own Mark Lamont Hill, including Palestinian author and writer and activist Susie Abu Hawa, and so many others. We want you to join us next week, Friday, at 6 p.m. to be a part of this dynamic conversation. And then on 24th, April 24th, his birthday, we will rally up at City Hall. We got buses and caravans coming from all across the Eastern Seaboard, all across the East Coast, the tri-state area. We will rally and take the street for Mumia Abu-Jamal. We are gonna show our conviction. We're gonna show our strength, the masses of the people. Every neighborhood's coming out. We got folks coming from all over the place, speakers, including Mortal Technique, M1 of Dead Prez, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. That's only a small list of folks who will be joining us Saturday, April 24th, to make sure that the whole world knows that we are gonna bring our brother Mumia Abu-Jamal home. And then, close out the weekend on April 25th, we can't go anywhere without acknowledging all political prisoners, and that includes our brother out of Philadelphia, Russell Maroon Schultz. Put in the chat free Mumia, and put in the chat free Maroon, and put in the chat free all political prisoners. And in the spirit of Maroon, as you see on the flyer, from 8 to 1 we'll be at the Maroon Garden, cleaning up, offering a prayer, celebration. And then also, we're gonna take it to Malcolm X Park in the afternoon, where we're going to acknowledge our brother, Walter Wallace Jr., because he was killed on October the 26th of 2020. And so we're gonna be coming on the 6-month recognition of that awful police terroristic murder right at 61st and Locust. And so we're gonna acknowledge with the family, Walter Wallace Jr., his connection to this movement, what he means to all of us, and also what Maroon means to all of us, with a variety of speakers, organizers, and we're going to do some community giveaways to show the community that they are a part of the movement as well in West Philadelphia at Malcolm X Park. So please join us. Please stay encouraged. We have some challenging times ahead of us. And the reason why he must come home now is because we saw what happened with Herman Wallace, where he was released from prison in 2013 and did not live a week. And we also recognize our dear brother Delbert Africa, who was released January of last year and made transition in June of 2020, 6 months later. So that should tell us all that the work is dire, but with all of us united together, we can all make it happen. So please continue to make your calls, make your emails, share social media, bring somebody new on board, share the news, stay updated. Let's stay all on the move, y'all. Peace.
That concludes our press conference today. And again, as Gabe said, make sure you check out the links, that link tree for Mumia, letmumiaout.com, and also mobilization for Mumia. That's the number 4.com for those of you listening on the phone. We're going to keep fighting until we get Mumia home. We're going to fight until we get justice. And the only thing close to justice at this juncture in history is to bring Mumia home. It won't take back what we've lost, but we can begin to restore by bringing him home and eventually bringing home every single political prisoner. The call is free them all. On the move, wishing y'all peace, love, and justice.